I started liking and using Insomnia, which is a bit simpler, but in the end, they are both Electron-based apps, and I don't know, they will probably work as well on your system. So Insomnia, and let's see how it looks when it's open. So I think this is the default color theme. So when I open it, it shows me my project. So I've already used this for work or for playing around, and so I have a bunch of requests saved up, but let's start from scratch. So what we want to do for this demo is create a new project. So what you need to know about using the GitLab API, the best starting point is the docs.gitlab.com/ee/API page. And it links to the REST API resources, but also lists some other APIs that GitLab offers. But it also gives you some information about using the API. And what we need to know here is that this is how a valid request looks in curl. And if you run this in the command line, you will get a response. Okay, right. So we are working with GitLab.com, so we need to get rid of the example part. And so we get an ugly, not pretty printed JSON. I think this is how you print it with JQ, and so it looks a bit better. What have I asked about? So this is probably lists all the projects. I don't know if it gave me all of them, but this is an example. And so that's how we use curl. There is a way to show the response headers, but Insomnia will do that. Will do it for us anyway. And authentication is something that you should know. Most requests to GitLab.com will need you to authenticate, and so as part of and so we will need to get an API token from GitLab, and I will create one for this demo in a second, and I will show you how to include the API token in your requests. So let's create a personal access token or an access token. I'm in GitLab.com. Let me go to preferences, and click access tokens. And this is where you create an access token. Let's call it API testing, API demo, for example. So this is an expiration date in a month, but it doesn't matter because as soon as I'm done recording, I will delete it, so you cannot use it. And we need the API scope. And click Create Personal Access Token. Here's the token. I'm going to keep this tab open, but if I close it, I won't see this again. And so let me copy it. And so what we want to do first, there's something called the base URL, and I used it in my curl request as well. And so this is the bit until v4. We are on REST API version 4. And so what we will see in the docs is only the bit that comes after. If you want to list the projects, do /projects. And so what you need to know is that this, or probably without example or your company name, is the base URL. And so if you click REST API resources, you will see whole super long list of pages for endpoints that GitLab has. And so the one that we are interested in is the projects API. It explains a bit of stuff, but then lists also the endpoints. So what we are looking for is create project, and it's here. Here's an example request. You will see those requests on hopefully all of the sections, but we don't really need that because we're not using curl. But as you could see, this will need us to specify the token. So the first code snippet here is the endpoint. It's going to be a post type request, and we will be aiming at the project endpoint. So going to Insomnia, or let me first grab base URL. Here, I'm going to click new HTTP request. Let me name it create project. Yeah, this is going to be a post request. Here, we need to put the base URL, so gitlab.com without example. And going back to the docs, we could see that this is the endpoint /projects. If we send it just like that, we're going to get the 401 error unauthorized. Why? Because, well, it's not important that we're not sending any info, but most of all, we're not sending our access token. And so we need to add it. How you can add it, how you can send it, we can either send it as a parameter, okay, or in the header, so with the metadata. So let's start with by sending it in the body. Here we choose how to format our body, and so JSON is if you wanted to write it out like in the JSON format, or what I like to do is select multi-part form, and so just add things here without worrying about the brackets, the commas, quotation marks. So there are two ways you could send the personal token. So either in the private token parameter, which is here. So we can type it out here. Private token, don't worry about the autocomplete now. And the thing that I just created. Let me paste it here. Let's see what happens if I send the request now. I still get 401 unauthorized. Okay, what else do I need to create a project? Well, to create a project, here are the parameters or the attributes. These two words are sometimes used interchangeably. So ideally, in our docs, you would expect the required parameters to be listed first. And so we can see here, we need to list the name and the path of the project, and everything else is, which are some settings that we can decide here, are optional. And so let's start with name. So the name of our project, how do I need to format it? It's a string. Okay, we're going to be boring here and call it API testing project. All right, and the second thing is the path. We can see that we don't need to specify the path. And so the name, we can call our project like this. And so probably the path is going to be like this, API testing project with hyphens. But as the docs say, we don't need to add it. And so now if I select send, it still says unauthorized, and I wonder why. Okay, well, I don't normally add the private token here, so let's do it how I normally do it. I use a header, and so I add a new header. As the docs tells us, it needs to be called private-token, all in caps, and now the value of the token. Let's hope it works now. And it did. So do it this way or figure out how to do it the first way. I obviously did something wrong. And so we have a response with the code 201, which is, we know now, is a success code that we have created the project. And here's all the info of the project. Now, let's see if we have any labels in our project. And so let's use the labels API endpoint. And the first thing we get here is the list labels endpoint. But before we do that, and this is an important tip, let's make our work a bit easier. We don't want to every time have to copy the access token, or like in this example, we will need the project ID. So let's save these for later. So this is the response for our creation project creation request. And so the first thing we have here is the project ID. Let me copy it. And both Postman and Insomnia have an option for you to save environment variables. And so the next time, if I save this string as API testing project name or ID, we will start typing that, and Insomnia will suggest to use it. And so here, I click the name. Let's do it once again. I click the name of the environment that I created. If I hadn't, it would say no environment. And I click manage environments. Here, again, you format it in a JSON format. And so these are some things that I've already added. So the project that we created, I can paste it here. And so the next time I want to use it, I will start typing API test project. Let's call it API. Yeah, okay. Testing, because that's how we called it. But you can call it whatever you want. And here is something that I did. So I don't need to remember how to format the name of, like, how to type private-token. And I list my token at the top. And so let's copy it once again, and hopefully the last time. Right, here we also have the base URL copied, and so you don't need to remember it next time. And let's see how it works in practice. Now, when you add a new HTTP request that we call list labels, list project labels, what kind of request is it? It's a GET request, and this is the endpoint. But let's start with the base URL. I just start typing base URL or base, and Insomnia gives me a whole bunch of variables that I might want to use. And so this is base URL. If you hover over it, you can see which environment it comes from, the one you're using, and what it evaluates to. What string does it give you? So in this example, it's the gitlab.com/API/v4 URL. So we can see that it doesn't end in a slash, and so I add it manually, and we need to type projects ID labels. This : ID means you need to add a something here, right? In this case, it's the ID of the project that you're using. And so instead of this ID, let me start typing API, right? And we have this variable that I nested under projects. And if I hover over it, we can see numbers. And so this is the ID of our project, right? And then slash labels. Looking at the docs, only the ID is required. I could add some, I could search for a specific label, but we don't need to do that. And so if I send it now, we get unauthorized. Why? You probably know by now, and I forgot, because we need to add a private token, an access token. And so here, instead of typing, pressing caps lock and typing private slash, no slash, hyphen token, I can start typing it however I want, or mistype it. But if I type it well, it's Insomnia suggests I use this variable. And so you could see that it evaluates to private token spelled correctly. And as value, my variable that I saved it under, if I don't remember, I can check, is API token. And so if I start to type it here, I have it, right? And this is the value. And so now this should work. And it works because we got a 200 status code, which is okay. But it's just nothing. There is no labels. And so let's create a label. And this time you can see I can use a request that I saved before, which is create new label. And this is how it looks. I need to modify this a little bit because it was aiming at my testing project. But like before, let me start typing API testing project. But let's first contact console the docs, create a new label. This is the endpoint. Let's see if it hasn't changed. Projects ID labels, projects my ID labels. And then we need to add the ID, which we are adding here. We need to provide the name of the label and the color of the label. Description and priority are optional. So in the header, I have added the private token so that we get authorized this time. And this is how you can add these parameters as a JSON, or we can use the multi-part form. And so as name, we can type new awesome label. And what was the next one? And this color, I don't remember what color this is. But it worked for me the last time. If we want, we can add a description. And so as description, we can type this. It's my new awesome label. And we should be good to go. And so now I click send, and we have a response. This ID that we got is the ID of the label, its name, and its description. And so let's go and see how my new project looks in GitLab. So when I created the project, I can look at the response again because Insomnia and Postman save the responses for you. I think only the last one, but you can save more. We got the web URL, and so when I paste it, into the browser, we should end up in the project. And I could find it manually by going to my projects and just selecting from there. But also we got this URL. Let's also look for our new label, which should be under labels. And there it is, our new awesome label. We can see it in the browser, but let's see if we can see it if we ask the API to list the project labels once again, because as you can see here, we got an empty set the last time. If I send this request again, now we can see there is one label and it's our awesome label. Okay, bye.